lady from a well-reputed house, actually. So you can see the kind of perception or the kind of expectation our society placed on women tend to make women, okay, if I use this internet actually, and my photo or my image is being used negatively, the people will not understand that I didn't do it, or maybe somebody took it and make it into a negative image. That is something that yes. So okay, if this will happen to me, then why going into the internet? Why using the internet? It's better for me not to. It's better for me to avoid it.
Well, I will come back to here if there are instances or forms of gender violence, but I would like to ask Salma, specifically, are there not laws that can be actually effective in addressing instances of gender-based violence, especially online?
Presently now in Nigeria, there is no law that addresses gender-based violence online, but we have the Cybercrime Act that compromises on has to do with cybercrime, and it addresses the issue of cybercrime towards everybody, whether you're a man or you're a woman. But the one we find relevant to gender-based violence online is the identity theft. The identity theft has to do with when somebody impersonates you, and you can actually take the person to court, and the punishment for identity theft is 3 years imprisonment or a fine of 7 million naira or both. Why there is another one that is cyber stalking? Because so many women are being stalked online. Maybe they had an intimate relationship with someone and with a guy, and they had a misunderstanding. Definitely, some of the guys who are very abusive will start stalking them online. So the Cybercrime Act actually addressed the issue of cyber stalking, and that one has to do, the punishment for that is 2 million naira fine or 1 year imprisonment or both. But what we are advocating for now is the gender-based violence online law that will be able to address that, because the gender-based violence has been there. It generated from offline to online, and women have been suffering on this for a very long time, and it's just that our society, the way they look at it, they tend to see that women are meant to be like that, and we didn't address the situation earlier. Will I say it's religion or tradition aspect that made it to look like that? So I think if we address the offline, if the gender-based violence online would not be as rampant as it is today. So it is from the offline that it actually promoted from the offline to the online gender-based violence. So we are calling on women that are passionate about this to join the force, so that the law for gender-based violence would be enacted, and all these issues would be history, because our daughters, our sisters can be a victim. Even me, I can be a victim of this. And if there is no law, definitely we are in a society that women will be scared of using the internet, because you have to give women the opportunity to express themselves on the internet. So if we don't do this, definitely so many women, our daughters, our sisters will be scared of using the internet, because there is no punishment or there is no law safeguarding that. Thank you.
So you are saying even the Cybercrime Act in itself is not sufficient to deal or address the gender-based violence online. And you pointed out whether or not there is a relationship between offline violence and online violence. If you could be a bit elaborate, how can offline violence translate into becoming an online violence?
The offline violence, when we talk about gender-based gender violence, actually, even some men experience violence too in their, because there are some women that beat their husband. So it's just that majority of people that suffer this as women in the society. So the offline gender violence has been there for a very long time. Because even if you don't experience it as a person, you will see maybe one of your uncle or one of your neighbor, or maybe your mom's friend is being violated. Maybe her husband is beating her husband is doing all sorts of crazy stuff to her, which is not happy. But it's just because of our mothers are that kind of people that are patient. They've accepted so many things in the society. Even if they experience us, they won't say it out because they are scared of saying it out, or maybe because they don't know what they will encounter from their husband when they say it out. And that has made it the issue of offline gender violence not to be addressed. I didn't think so many women were coming out, like the issue of rape. Today, if not that people are there are so many civil society organizations that are standing for victims of rape. Then when they were raping women, they don't say it out, they keep it to themselves. Why? Because of the stigma attached to it. So even the online gender-based violence online, there are so many women that encounter this, but they don't come out to say it. They don't come out to tell their story so that other people will learn from it. And when we don't come out to tell our story, tell me, how can we address this issue? You need to come out to tell your story so that we'll be able to find solution to this. And even our society has gotten to the extent that even if a lady is raped, maybe the guy that raped the lady is from a wealthy family. They will use money to cover the mouth of the parents of the rape or the guardian of the rape victim.
Let me understand something here. You said some women do not open up when they are harassed online or intimidated. I don't know whether you attach, I don't know, it's my opinion anyway. Is cultural or religious, anything, is there any relationship between, do we have cultural influence or religious influence that stop some women from opening up to say out their minds when they're intimidated?
I think it's the stigma in the society. You know, our African mentality, when a lady is being harassed or violated, the public outcry focused on the lady more. Whereas two or three people were involved in this. I will give you an instance. There is a female actress, Hollywood actress. She's from the north that was indulged in a sexual act with a boyfriend or a man friend, and they took a video of that. So the guy kept the video on his phone. His friend picked his phone and saw the video of the sexual act, and he sent it to his phone. So from there, the video went viral. Actually, the society didn't talk about the guy. They focused more on the girl. Why? Is it because she's a woman? So even the issue of this Big Brother, there's one of their contestants, I don't want to call, two of them were involved in the sexual act. And now when you go to the internet, they focus more on the girl, leaving the guy behind, saying the guy will definitely he will get a woman to get married to, why the girl is very hard for it will be very hard for her to get a husband. So, you know, it's because of the way our mind is being shaped. Stereotype. The way our mind is being shaped in the society situation.
Thank you so much. and complaints are addressed accordingly. I can start from my father.
Access to passport. A lot of women, when they start to continue because at every level, women are laid elephants to several platforms, several environment spaces. So this is also an area that women don't have enough empowerment. They don't have enough training. They don't have enough time because their time is so scarce. If you look back, you see that women are involved in unpaid labor or involved in taking care of the whole society. So it leaves them very little time to be able to learn some more techniques and methods of accessing the social media as well as also empowering themselves. So they have very limited time. Even if you talk about access to resources, they also don't have. So if we don't intentionally and deliberately plan to enhance the capacity of women to take it, you can secure your social media passwords very well so that getting access to it will not be by accident unless you give somebody the authority. And we should be also discreet. If we are discreet, we teach them how to be discreet, it will be very helpful. Another area to need to enhance the capacity of women is that tell them that sometimes women get very emotional. Take for example, there's a crime and especially rape. The woman might become so emotional and say, oh, can you treat this person with a little bit of compassion? You have so much outcry against the woman. Oh, it means you are supporting the criminal. So we also need to help women not to avoid so much emotional outburst. It's part of them. So it's not, you can't separate it, but let's be able to control it. I think another area is for us to budget. In this sector, we should be able to budget to ensure that is it in the kitchen, is it on the farm, all places of work that women are somehow by society constrained to. Can we now provide information, provide facilities that they can use so that the time they lose caring for the whole society or for humanity is not just gone like that. They will also have something to benefit. So
we have very insufficient time. I'm sorry, I have to stop here. Very briefly, maybe in a minute or so, can you just tell us at individual level or organization level what you're doing to address gender-based violence?
At CISLAC, we are advocating for women's rights at the legislative level. And also, individually, I volunteer for CTAD. We go to like secondary school to sensitize, educate young girls on how to use the internet and preventive tools to safeguard themselves when they are using the internet. For example, when they go to a cyber cafe, because now when you are registering for JAM, you have to have an email address, and some of them don't know how to use the internet. They don't know the preventive tools on how to use the internet. So we just catch them young. We go to secondary schools, primary schools, and most especially secondary school. We educate them on how to use the internet. Like when they go to a cyber cafe, when they log in, they shouldn't leave their email without logging out in the cyber cafe, because anybody can go there and use their email for internet fraud. And
here back in Kano, to sensitize the people back in Kano State the negative effect of this gender violence online. And we run campaign also on the social media, on Facebook, training of trainer, where we collect a group of journalists, CBOs, civil servants, and the rest, 20 women collected. We gathered 20 women from different states in the northern Nigeria. We trained them on the internet safety and security tools that they can use to protect themselves from this gender violence online. And they gave us their commitment that they will step down this training to 20 women, either in their organizations or their communities. Various communities, and I found that they did that. So we have reached through that training We have reached 400 women in the northern Nigeria, various including journalists, just as said earlier, and CITAD as well used to usually go to communities, various communities, remote communities, and train the people, especially the girls and women, on the internet safety and security tools that they can use to protect themselves from this online.
Thank you. Please, next speakers should be mindful of time. Please keep your comments and questions very short. Thank you. Yes, give it.
Okay, mine is a comment. The gender violence for women, both online or offline, I think it has to do with the traditional culture and even the religious belief of such communities. Because like the traditional council itself, why I'm mentioning the traditional council, because recently I remember the Emir of Kano sent his daughter to present him at the Bring Back Our Girl forum here in Abuja. I think this year is NAP Center. And then there was condemnation that it has never happened in the history of Kano State for an Emir to send his daughter to represent him in such an occasion. That it has always been one council or the other, and they are men. So the traditional institutions need to be enlightened, and the religious leaders need to be enlightened, because they are the ones that promote anti-female societal issues. They promote violence and all these matters. So that's just the point I want to make.
Thank you so much. You can take
Okay. Yes. Phone call.
Respond.
So, my question is going for 3 panelists, which I'm happy because you are female. Do you have an NGO you work with or a mechanism where you can bring these people to book? Because the internet is a safe space for so many people. So many women, when they are violated, they come online and they say, this is what happened to me. And I had calls where I posted something because I was depressed, and people called me, hey, take that down. You shouldn't share your dating limit online, But you don't know who is an expert on your field or on your line that wants to call you and talk to you and advise you. And you have so many trolls trying to, shush you up. Do you have a mechanism to punish those who try to troll others and bring them down?
Thank you. There is a lady or a gentleman behind you. Yes, with glasses.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry speaking to the record. I just wanted to find out whether CITAD do have any support mechanisms for young ladies that have suffered from maybe hate speech or gender violence, whether they have any mechanism to support them if they get to the center. Thank you.
Hello. I like to think of women as a star of creation. When a woman teaches, it's women that teach children generally how to behave and how to act. So I think it's foundational. If we are teaching women and girls when they are growing up not to climb trees, not to play football, not to engage in a certain act, they tend to grow up with such mentality, and then expecting them to come and later on start changing all of a sudden when you're grown. It's sort of limitating. So just as a contribution, it's a mindset thing. If we start from childhood, bringing up strong women that are not dependent really on approval, social media approval, or family approval, more like a little bit of deviation from.
We are running out of time, please.
Okay, so that's just it.
I just want to ask.
Okay, so that's just it.
I just want to ask CITAD if you have collaboration with other gender-based violence focus organizations, because there's one issue now in Nigeria. It's not particular to the north. I think southwest, southeast, and the north, whereby you recruit or you kidnap young girls and then you take them to a particular country in Asia, because those people, they have laws that, help young girls, and then they take these girls down there just to kill them, and then from there they make more money on their behalf. So they take them to a particular.
Somebody mentioned what can be done to those who traffic girls. I think it is it's a governmental role. The civil society can only play an advocacy role in terms of exposing those who are involved. That's why we have NAPTIP. That's why you see collaboration between NAPTIP.
Much questions and
okay, for the girls actually, we're trying to train them. We have this program, just like back there in Kano. It's a program that we get the young girls, especially from those at secondary school and at tertiary level, to educate them on the importance of positive aspects or positive things they can do with the internet, trying to change their perception towards the internet as maybe just a form of entertainment to something they can explore the importance or benefits they can get from the internet. I mean, instead of them using the internet negative
that made the laws for the tradition, why can't we break the bond? Because so many women are facing this because of our daughters, our sisters. We need to do something about it. The gender-based violence when it comes to, I know when you start talking about it, the people bring tradition and religion aspect into it. So I think we need to overlook some things and do something about it. And the issue of NGO bringing people into group, I don't think that will be possible. We can only advocate for it, and if actually the people that we voted in want have our interest at heart, they will actually do something. I would want more women in the legislative, in the National Assembly that will advocate for this for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, distinguished panelists. I think you have done a wonderful job by giving us your robust and highly reputable views. I will start by thanking my mama. Thank you very much, even though late, but thank you for honoring the invitation. Salma Abdulwahid and Mariam Adwaruna, we thank you very much for being on the panel. To you, the distinguished participants, thank you for listening to us. I think the next session, which is on hate speech, is also the same topic, detoxicating the net, that is addressing hate speech and gender-based violence online. So now we are switching to the addressing hate speech online. Thank you so much. Until we meet in the next session. I want to briefly acknowledge the presence of our boss, the Executive Secretary of National Human Rights Commission. He is there, over there, sitting himself. Sir, you're welcome.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mariam Adwaruna from Center for Information Technology and Development. And actually, we are going to take the second part or second form of detoxicating the internet, which is hate speech in Nigeria, hate and gender speech in Nigeria, which I think does more harm even the gender violence we have spoken about right now. I'm not saying that gender violence is not harmful, but I think this hate speech and gender speech does more harm because of kind of inciting hatred, igniting for crisis in our society. So please permit me to call to welcome him. Our second panelist is Bola Ajibola from Savannah Center for Diplomacy, Democracy and Development. Please, let's welcome him. And we have Hamza Ibrahim, the researcher, hate speech, Let's Come project in Nigeria. Hamza Ibrahim, please come back to the stage. We're talking about detoxicating the net in the aspect or from the angle of hate and dangerous speech in Nigeria. Well, as a researcher who has a vast understanding on this concept of hate speech and who has been mentoring and countering this hate speech in Nigeria, what is your assessment on how rampant this hate speech is in Nigeria?
Thank you so much, Madam, for giving me the opportunity. Well, just common sense assessment in Nigeria. Once you log on Facebook, especially because research has shown in Nigeria, we have done a number of researches previously, asking people which platform actually, is awash with hate speeches. But our assessment and the findings indicated that Facebook is always working. Probably for the reasons that Facebook is so easy to access, and Facebook can be used by people who are not literate, and it affords a number of people the chance to express themselves in a number of languages. Facebook is now, so I think this is one reason why hate speech is so rampant, especially on people. Yes, there are hate speeches on Twitter and some other social media sites, but basically what we have on Facebook, our assessment, I forgot to also actually mention at the beginning, at our Center for Information Technology and Development Center for over 4 years now, we have been monitoring and counting hate speeches, both online and offline. And the focus, especially online, we have dedicated monitors who continuously monitor hate speeches and counter those hate speeches as well. Media users. Well, let me be at the same side. Majority, quite a number of people on social media are unaware of the hateful content they share. Because, but on other social media sites, sometimes on very shaky grounds and some other elements that might also be considered. But basically, religion can express and try to portray that advancement, because you see, in many occasions, it's just as one person that you throw a judgment or funny statement, and then you get people to start, debating, castigating other people's religions, other people's beliefs, these types of things. So for me, these three elements actually stand out, because for the things we've been doing, these three things are very, very key in terms of purification of hate speech on social media. Free of hate speech on social media and other hate speech, and then violation of human rights. On the drive, the problem of hate speech, the main incident, people who try to violate people are injured with their lives. So the commission felt that with the growing job, drug will not be able to exercise the right to vote. There will be a lot of limitation of women, and so on and so forth. So you can see that the campaign against hate speech in 2015 elections really worked, because everybody was almost sure that the elections was going to violence. But because of the awareness they get, and then the then president accepted the result of the, you could feel the thickness. We were just heading to the rocks, the way things were going, the kind of things people were saying about each other, the kind of call to action, the kind of denigrating statement. People were in it, we are in one united country, and we should not, if anything happens, they are the people who are going to suffer. So we need to curtail our hate statements, we need to curtail the dangerous statements, so that the election campaigns will be based on issues. What are you going to do for the people? What can you do to better the life of Nigerians? Not telling us why this religion is bad or why this ethnic group is bad, and so on and so forth. That will not help us to get anywhere. So that is why we are carrying on.
Okay, if I get you clearly, are you saying that the rate of these hate and dangerous speeches in Nigeria has increased if you compare it to the previous years we have back there?
Certainly. We carried out a survey, and we went to some key endemic states, because in 2015, because they gained something. And we also realized that in the past, people were not being held accountable for these things. Until we mounted the campaign in 2015, people were not really too conscious about big statements and dangerous speeches. You could just open your mouth, post anything on the net, challenge somebody who has, made a dangerous or a statement against them. So
Because people benefit from these things and there's no accountability on the basis of internet and not emphasize on the native aspects of it.
Okay, I'm coming back to your letter. Okay, Mr. Bala, in attempt to address this issue of hate and dangerous speeches in Nigeria, a bill was proposed by the Nigerian Senate to maybe any person found guilty of this hate speech, and which resulted into a death of another person shall die as well. And the federal government has also criminalized this issue of hate speech. And then there are responses from the people. Some people are seeing this as a positive response, while some people are seeing it as negative.
So, if we have this idea or clear understanding of what hate speech is, the idea of law, whether Nigerian Senate was right to have moved for a law to criminalize hate speech, we could further discuss it in a contextual way that each and every one of us will be talking objectively. In my own opinion, I believe that hate speech has weaponized online activity. And if we are going to work together to make online engagement and activism to be seen, we need to find a way of weaponize online, community itself. So I believe that moving forward, there is a need for legislation. We just need to define it properly. It would be for us to dust out the Cybercrime Act, look at some of the lacuna in the Cybercrime Act, and see a way where we can make it more effective. Now, as a first thing, I want to say that having a proposal for capital punishment for hate speech is a different ballgame. For me, it's a no. But at this point, and the way the world is going, especially because of the kind of politics and religion we practice in this country, I believe there is a need for legislation to keep us together. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bella. Let me get back to Professor Tony. I know your commission has been doing a lot against hate speech. Would you mind telling us more on what you are doing regarding to the 2019 general elections?
Okay, like I said, why the use of the internet for some of the negative aspects. The browser internet is a very important development and use it to a lot of achieve a lot of society. But these negative aspects of it, the commission decided to investigate allegations of hate speeches, that can be generated to election violence. So what we did was we published for memoranda and the members of the public. They know anybody who has made negative comments or participated in any activities that would be termed as dangerous statements that could lead to violence and endanger the lives of people in society. We call for memoranda in respect of that, and we received about 70 of them from all the geopolitical zones in the country. So we started investigating these statements. We moved from one geopolitical zone to the other. We have, after the preliminary investigations of this, now under our system, since we're a Human Rights Commission, we can't take any action unless we give people fair hearing. So the next stage was to carry out a public hearing, where we now invited those making the allegations and those against whom the allegations were made. They were free to come with their lawyers and defend themselves. We've completed that process in all the geopolitical zones. So the stage where we are now is to analyze all this scenario and see whether actually those statements qualify what we term as dangerous statements or hate speeches that would lead to election violence. And then, if we come to that conclusion, we will now recommend to the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation that these people should be prosecuted. Alternatively, we have opened the register of those who will be adjudged to have participated in making dangerous or hate speeches that would throw the polity into some crisis. Now, the beauty of this document, this register we shall have in the Commission, it will serve as a reference point. That register is like an indictment, because those who are doing research in future can easily come to the Commission and say, okay, who are those who have been involved in hate speeches in the past, either through the internet or offline, and so on and so forth. And that will now provide some research material for people who want to carry out research on hate speeches and so on and so forth. And all this hate speech is not free speech, because your freedom to say
and calling people to action, justify a whole lot that, as far as Nigeria is concerned, even though we seem to have a very vibrant media, atmosphere, so to say, but it seems that we don't have effective law. And in order to move forward, we've been able to engage with all the big players in the industry. First and foremost, we have to set up council of eminence in Nigeria who are well respected, to travel across the country to meet with the big players in this media industry. This council, called Desmap Media Council, is led by Justice Mohammed Uwais, the former Chief Justice of Nigeria. In the course of interaction, we've been able to interact with NBC, talking about Broadcasting Commission. We've interacted with all kinds of guys, including the NPAN of this world, NUG, the Guild of Editors, and all of that. Just to, thus far, I will tell you that we are good. One of the success stories for us in Savannah Center will be when we met with Broadcasting Commission. The DG told the council that at that level they were also worried, and we are going to kickstart a process that will make them to review their broadcasting laws. And I'm happy to say that sometime last year, I think around April, May, in Kano, revitalize and inject all the necessary section to make sure that people that are broadcasting hate speech are duly served. So for me, we are making a whole lot of progress.
All right, thank you. I'll get back to you for more recommendations, actually. But before then, Hamza, can you share with us any impacts, positive impacts or success stories Center for Information and Technology and Development has recorded so far in combating the issue of hate speech in Nigeria?
Well, for us at the Center for Information Technology and Development, CITAD, we have documented a number of, worthwhile stories. Because we think hate speech, we're talking about hate speech online or offline, but you cannot address hate speech if you don't really address the good cause of it. We realized that traditional and religious leaders have a crucial role to play. So we actually focused on, soliciting their buy-in, and at this point, I'm happy to announce that across the country, not only in northern Nigeria, because our sensitizations and enlightenment campaigns cover the whole of Nigeria. We have from different parts of the country, different respected religious leaders from Islam and Christianity who are now taking the sensitization to their pulpits, which is, for us, is a very good step at actually taming the menace of hate speeches. Again, we have some respected traditional leaders who normally, especially during Tabanan ceremony or rare gatherings, try to sensitize their own followers. And of course, I think I can still remember that we have some media organizations who have dedicated pages, specifically leadership. There's a newspaper called Leadership Hausa. They've given us a calling because they notice how, at the level at which we've been pursuing the issue of hate speech, and then they gave us a calling, which appears every week, to just for sensitize people and let people know the effect of hate speeches and propagate and promote peace in the society. This is just one example. From the media industry, we have some couple of newspapers and radio stations that from their own, through our own intervention and then kind of sensitizing them and trying to remind them their own social responsibility, social responsibility theory of the media that actually hold them accountable to their own audience. So I think we have made a crucial progress from different dimensions. If you look at the media industry, we have some stories to actually say, and we have people on their own who have created platforms on social media, apart from our own that we run, trying to sensitize their own people. I mean, we have a couple of groups that are dedicated to propagating peace and enlightening people on hate speeches. I think this is a good step because by the time we realize, and a number of people actually don't understand the effects or repercussions of hate speeches. So by the time you have people from the, traditional leaders angle, from the religious leaders angle, and then from the media, as well as from the youth angle, you have these four perspectives and other perspectives who are ready to volunteer and join the campaign against hate speech. I think it's a good step. And then if sustainable, time will tell that hate speech can equally be addressed. Even though I also agree that hate speeches cannot be single-handedly addressed with our own efforts at individual levels, but we need institutional backing, functional laws that will work to stop people from committing hate speeches. You don't wait for people to commit hate speeches before you punish them, but try to encourage and enlighten people to understand that hate speech is nothing that should be entertained in our societies.
Okay, Hamza. You have to concentrate of time. Thank you so much. Thank you all for the wonderful contributions. Now I think we need to get back to the audience for their questions and comments. So the floor is yours now. So questions, comments? Hello?
The floor is open.
Yeah.
It's your one-time audience. We continue.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, without questions, comments, contribution, whatever it is, it's welcome. Okay, I see some hands over there. Yes, raise the microphone. I can see some hands over there.
Sorry, my question is to the Human Rights Commission Executive Secretary. I know after the 2015 elections, Human Rights Commission attempted to document perpetrators of electoral violence. I know our organization supported to see how we can make it have a demographic, gender, social, and demographic component. Now you started the process. I'm wondering, does it have a component of gender and other demographics like persons with disabilities, women? This was targeted to this category of people, all those demographics that, because of the nature of our country.
Okay. I thought we would take all the questions.
Yes. All right.
Hello, my name is Steven. I think most of the conversation on this panel has been around hate speech. There hasn't been much focus on propaganda. There's one issue I noticed on most social media platforms is that sometimes you're following a page or you like a page on Facebook, and before you know it, the page has changed. There's this issue of trading pages and Twitter handles and all of that online these days, where people just sell a social media handle after it has gathered a lot of followers. So you could see a page that maybe talks about cakes and pastries, and you like it, and before you know it, it's talking about something else. So it could be maybe propaganda and all of that. So what's the approach to this? And is there anything that from the perspective of government or from other civil-side agencies that can be done about this?
No, I will come back to you.
So I want to know the difference between free speech and hate speech.
Good afternoon. My name is Nandong. I want to I'm looking at hate speech maybe relatively. So I want to know the correlation between that and governance, okay? Because I know people always maybe would talk based on what they feel is happening with the governance structure in a society. So how can we really handle this aspect? And then how do we tag it as hate or propaganda, just like one other person said?
I don't know whether it's a question or a comment. I've seen a lot of discussions on hate speech with the attitude, international standards on hate speech and incitement, because I think, as you know, the international law and standards are very strict on the regulation of hate speech. But again, I think when you look at like the literature by Professor Bollinger on tolerance, don't you think Africa, particularly Africa, I know other parts of the world like Bosnia and UK, Northern Ireland, there's issues relating to hate speech. But I think being African, probably don't you think we need psychosocial interventions rather than knee-jerk legislative interventions or like passing laws? Because I kind of think that's some kind of thing against African men in particular, not women. We have got anger management problems. Especially here in Nigeria, I think in the airport and so on. They're almost fighting. And don't you think I think we need more emotional intelligence than legislative? Thank you.
Okay, let's take one more question so that you'll be able to respond to the questions.
He was not paying us because I don't get it.
Okay, I want to make a comment on the third person from the left, by my left. He said that there's need for legislation on hate speech. I think there's a legislation on hate speech definitely is going to be abused by the government. Because recently, we have seen comments, constructive comments that have been made by Nigerians and some legislators. And then the government will come up with frame-up charges against them. They frame the charges against them to make sure that they did not stop them from airing their freedom of expression. Like somebody asked, what's the difference between hate speech and free speech? This country today, if you're making free speech and it's against the government, they will find any way possible to make sure that you are prosecuted. So if there's a legislation today, the government will take advantage of that to silence the opposition. And that's what is happening. I remember during the 2015 election, the present government were in opposition. And they said that they are going to form parallel government if they fail the election. Was that not a hate speech? So when people are talking of hate speech today, it amazes me. And sometimes it really provokes me, because when you're looking at what was happening when the government was in opposition and what is happening today, you wonder what is hate speech.
Okay, thank you, Liz. I think we should get back to our panelists for their responses. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. You see, I want to actually...
We need to be cautious of time. We have just 4 minutes left, so...
Okay, I'll be brief. I want to agree with my Zimbabwean friend. Yes, we need emotional intervention more than the legislature. That is why we concretize at our own center. We realize that when people are mobilized, are sensitized and enlightened at a very grassroots level to be more tolerant, when they have been, immunized with tolerant dose, they will actually avoid hate speech on their own. Let alone wait for, laws that will actually, face them and punish them for whatever offense they commit. But then you need to remember that actually there is no way you can apply one approach or perspective and then you think, especially in Nigeria, that perspective will just go a long way in addressing hate speech. I strongly here disagree that emotional intervention, as you are advocating, can be the only tool that can address hate speech in totality. But I go with your points earlier, if you can succumb, that we need a combination of both legislative perspective and the emotional perspective as well. And then very briefly, before I allow the other panelists to talk, there is another person who actually was kind of saying whether or not there is a distinction between hate speech and propaganda. For me, these are two separate things, because when we say hate speech, there are elements of a speech that make it hateful, that make it hurtful. Whether or not a propaganda can be a just self-statement.
Okay, thank you, Hamza. I think Mr. Bola, is there a question you want to respond to? In 1 minute.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, I want to look at this from democracy, because freedom of speech is what we amplify a lot under democratic governance. But most of the time, as citizens, we've forgotten that despite the fact that democracy gives us freedom of speech, the freedom that democracy also gave us comes with duties and responsibility. What is lacking is most time we talk about the freedom. We run away from the duty and responsibility that democracy bestows on every one of us.
Okay, thank you so much. Barrister, is there any question you want to respond to?
Yes.
In a minute.
Yes, the aspect of demographics and the data we are collecting about HPTS takes into consideration gender issues, people with disabilities, and so on and so forth. The platform has already been established and we're following up on that. Now, the issue of hate speech, whether it's incitement or whether it's part of African man, and then whether we need emotional rather than social solution. I want to give you an example. If you call a woman a prostitute and that people should stone her, is that freedom of speech?
All right, thank you so much. I would like to thank our three panelists for your important contributions, as well as the audience for their listening. So thank you so much. I hope we're going to find ways against this hate speech in Nigeria. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, I think we can do one more round of applause for our panelists. I know we are heading for the very last round, but it's tired, we've had lunch, so we're doing it again. Everybody stand up. Please stand up. We need to get the blood flowing. Let's, just get ourselves on our feet a little bit. Take a minute or two to stretch your legs as we get set for the next panel. The next panel is also the last one, and it is a main panel, which is how to ruin elections in Africa. I would have done some kind of competition, but we don't have time for that. But just stretch out, just, flex out and get yourself ready, and we will get started. So I will be moderating this panel, and we'll be looking at how complex elections in Africa are, even though not necessarily special, but how complex they are and how we are actually ruining elections and not winning them. So I'll go ahead and invite my panelists up to the podium with me. I have Akwe from West Africa. She'll be talking about the situation in West Africa. Akwa, I think you are in the auditorium. Then also Farida is with us. She'll be joining us on the panel this afternoon and sharing some of the experiences happening currently in the Togo situation. Federico from Namibia also, please make your way to the podium. And finally, BC from here in Nigeria as we get this conversation started. So let's get comfortable. It is the last session. And I'm very sure we can all do this. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time.
Yes. Yes, welcome.
It's you, Aisha, giving my shoe. Where's my shoe?
Bit of. Hate speech. That's a point.
Hate speech on my personality. Hate speech on my personality.
They count. They call you, they count.
There's a journalist here. There's a journalist here. I'm going to report you to her.
So we'll just wait a few minutes for our other panelists and then we'll get started.
Hate speech. Please take note.
Hate speech, illegal carry. We can record it. Don't start.
Hate speech against my personality here. I'm coming to take this one.
I've been told to let you know that you need to mark this date down in history.
Dino is dancing. Dino is dancing the same song. Dancing is music. No, he took already. In as much as I like him, but my likeness.
All of them are misbehaving. Is it only
Yes. He's a dancer.
That's your name? I thought you were Kenya or something.
No.
That's
why stand for you?
He just was like,
more Twitter now. Performing artist.
Legislator person. What time is it like?
All right, our last panelist is coming, so once he comes inside, we'll just bring him up. So good afternoon. Thank you again for your patience and in some regards your long suffering. These things can get quite long, but this panel is looking at how to ruin elections in Africa. And typically we talk about how to win elections. When I first saw the title, I was like, wait, did someone make an error? But obviously there is no error because elections, I even like to say they can be special. So 20 countries are facing elections in 2018. A few of them have had those elections already. Egypt has had elections, Liberia has had elections. And elections in Africa end up mostly being plagued with electoral violence, allegations of voter fraud and things like that. Now, many believe that buying, rigging, or stealing is the name of the game when it comes to elections on the African continent. With digital rights being violated, fake news, and much more happening with crucial elections happening on the continent, let's talk about what happens next and what happens beyond some of these elections. Farida, let me start with you. We were having a conversation during lunch about some of the things happening currently in Togo, and your elections are not coming up officially until 2020. But there are issues around the previous elections and even how the government is in power now. So I'll ask you the main question that is the topic of this panel. How have elections seemingly been ruined in Togo?
Thank you for the question. Elections in Togo, I think we don't really have, for those who don't know the background of Togo, we have been ruled by the same family for 51 years, the oldest military regime in Africa. And ever since, people have been talking about democracy and multi-partyism and elections, so they too feel like, okay, since people say we should have elections, then we organize elections too. But the government controls basically all the institutions of the country. The Electoral Commission members are appointed mostly by them, and they have no real control of the electoral process, even though they are in the Electoral Commission. You have the Minister of Interior, who is the one basically rallies of the political party, wearing party uniform. So where is the balance of power here? So when it comes to elections, in Togo they are ruled through the control of the judiciary, the hijacks. They become very violent. In 2005, over 1,000 people got killed during the elections because they challenged the government, and it didn't go well. Many people were massacred. Over 100,000 fled the country. So these can, elections can turn a country upside down, especially now.
And Akua, I want to pick up from that thread. Interestingly enough, Farida said elections, she believes that they're an abusive word. And we were also having a conversation earlier about why there's so much tension around elections in Africa. It's so difficult to simply just have an election, move on with your life. There's always the allegations, the potential for violence, vote rigging, the wrong person coming in. So do you agree with her in terms of the fact that there are no elections in the majority of countries on the African continent? It's more a selection basis. And what does that mean in terms of how countries are doing even democratically, especially with some of the situations in the West African side of things?
That's an excellent question. Now, I'm an optimist at heart, and I do want to be looking forward, because as you rightly pointed out in the previous session, we're now in election season for Nigeria, and there are many other countries that have elections as well. So I do think that it is about addressing a few things that enable elections not to be ruined. Addressing apathy and ignorance. People think their rights don't matter, their vote doesn't count. Sometimes they don't know how to exercise that right. So where do I go? How do I register to vote? Who do I talk to? Which documents do I need? Sometimes people think that they should vote based on rumors, right? Or, false news, fake news has been discussed many times during this conference. But sometimes also people, how can we get informed to vote based on facts? Like, what are these parties standing for? And I recognize that that's not a complete solution, because parties promise a lot, and whether or not they actually do it is a different question. But even there, it's something about holding governments accountable in ways that I've seen people do using social media, not just Facebook, but different platforms. And I think it is about having that conversation about governments speaking up to saying what it is that you're actually standing for. Are you going to address my social needs, my housing needs, my education needs? And how can I, as a young person, hold you accountable to that later on? So I do think that we focus a lot on the day of election, but democracy is not just about the election day. It is about basically your relationship, your contract with your government throughout the entire period of your life. And so now people are getting so excited and emotions are running high. And that's not just in Africa, that's everywhere in the world, because resources are at stake. And it is your time to chop, usually when your government is in power. So you want to do all sorts of times. So this is something that we see all the time. Before an election, usually we spike because when my emotions are running high, that means incitement to violence becomes an issue. I do want to say that from a Facebook standpoint, these are things to judge which are against our community standards. But people don't know. So I think we recognize that people might think, oh, okay, I see it on Facebook, so early it's time for me to insult people based on their gender or their race or their tribal affiliation. Well, it's not. But in order for Facebook to do something about it, they have to report it to us. So we want to be doing a lot more, especially when we run up to elections, so that people flag it to the companies so they can take this content down before it goes viral, before it can have real world harm, because nobody wants that. So to your point, after people get hurt, there are real life consequences to elections. They are, and I think we need to focus on making sure that these are somehow reduced or, if possible, eliminated.
All right, fantastic. Now, Enrico, let's talk a little bit about some of the work you've been doing and building off of what Aqua said. And it's all coming to, she talked about being the eternal optimist and looking forward. But a lot of people tell you don't know where you're going, but not sure where you're coming from. And there's a history on the African continent of institutions, let's talk about state institutions, being used to ruin elections, to either make sure they're not as free and fair as they could be. You have the state police, the military, other allied security agencies. Now, looking in that regard of security, how best do we as a continent, especially now with so many crucial elections, just in the space of a year and a half, work with even the state institutions that are meant to guarantee the people's right to really vote, to make sure that those votes count? How do we work with those institutions to guarantee that we don't ruin the next set of elections?
Latent incitement to ethnic violence, surveillance abuse, and various other troubling features. So what we're looking at with our elections coming in November 2019, next year, is how what happened in the ruling party elections at the end of last year, actually playing out in those elections coming up. And it's immensely disturbing because I think they sort of perfected some things in the run-up to that election, and there are things that we see happening and I'm sure it's reflected in all of our societies and in our political landscapes to a lesser or greater extent. And what we are starting to do now is sort of engaging with the Electoral Commission. And I think that's something that I think all of us in civil society, wherever we might find ourselves, that we need to do more. Is as we in the run-up to elections that we actually engage. I mean, if it's an institution that I think we sort of it's about a year and a half to go before our national and presidential elections. I think we're now talking about okay, so what are some of the things that we can replicate that others have applied in their societies in ahead of elections to avoid some of the things which we can probably see going to happen. We had this big, I don't like to use the term fake news, but there was this big disinformation and fake news war in these ruling party elections.
Contradictory, but especially in a Nigerian context, you do understand that. And you earlier had mentioned apathy and ignorance. Is there a role, complicity of the citizens, a lack of awareness or a lack of even holding ourselves as citizens to a higher standard in this game? Is there a role that it plays in how we ourselves sadly help people to ruin our own elections?
That's a great question. I do think that we, but I do think that your vote is powerful. I mean, you should put it on yourself to find out, A, how can I exercise that vote, that right to vote? What do I need to do? I understand a lot of people here in Nigeria have not yet picked up the relevant documentation that they need in order to go vote. That right there is that you're letting basically somebody else take your right away. Because what you have to do is a few steps in order to make sure that when the day comes, you're ready to go. You're ready to have your registration card and place your mark. So I do think there are certain things where we can't, as citizens, we have to help ourselves. We have to educate ourselves on who it is that we want to vote for, and we also have to educate ourselves how the process works.
I think we also have to educate ourselves, and that goes a little bit to what my colleagues were saying about what is true and what is not true. Because the reality is education.
Laws and charters, but then the government should not even care about implementing them. And I talk about the African Union Human Rights Charter, for example. You know, it has specificities about how it protects the states more than it protects the people. You know, when there is a coup, there are consequences, but they rarely ever yield any result. So it is quite complicated because, you know, you have most of the diplomats working there appointed by the government themselves. And these institutions at some point are functioning as clubs, you know, president's clubs, and most of these governments always have things to hide, and it's a situation of scratch my back, I scratch yours. You know, I shut down internet in Togo, you don't see anything, so that when you shut it down in Cameroon, I also keep quiet. It works like that, and they are very comfortable with it. As citizens have to do most of the work. You know, we do have to fight our governments, while we also have to
extent international bodies can do as well. But going forward, looking at the elections this year, Nigeria next year, your country as well, Togo coming up in 2020, it simply doesn't seem like we can continue the way we were. So how do we move forward? How do we make sure that the elections that are coming up, and you were talking about it earlier, the plans, I think a little bit more specification as to what exactly can be done to make sure future elections are not ruined. Well, I mean, I don't think there's any guaranteed path to, you know, successfully avoiding devastation in terms of elections. But I mean, the question, and I mean, I've heard it on a number of panels here. The question is that we're all grappling with is this one: how do you awaken a political consciousness within your ordinary citizen out there in the rural areas, in the home states, villages, and so forth? That's a question, you know, that we are grappling with. And the answers, you know, we reach out, we try and do outreach work through, you know, the technologies that we have, Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp, you know, whatever we can use. But I make some speak to, for instance, access to information, and there's, but this background exercise was about pointing people to the relevant sections in various charters and protocols and so forth, and saying this is signed up to, this is what our government has ratified. You know, ultimately this is the big picture. That when it comes to elections and various other sort of and you know, so I'm sorry, I can't give you a sort of a categorical. No, I fully understand. Yeah, categorical sort of answer. But Federico talked about the 20 years for us to be as involved in politics as other people around the world. A lot happens in 20 years. A lot happens in one president's tenure that can change the whole path of a country.
It has to continue the way it is. But I don't see it that way. I think the real challenge is that the educational system that we run sort of just basically want people to be the way they are and not, you know, get them to understand, you know, the value of what their civic responsibilities are, and then how, you know, they tie into the way governance and every other thing around politics and political process works. Again, as a people, we also just, you know, have this nonchalant attitude of, you know, whatever government does, as long as I can take care of myself and my family, we will be all right. I don't agree that we will be all right, because regardless of whatever we become in life, whatever we will become is mostly determined by, you know, what the government of the period, in terms of policy, in terms of ideas, in terms of direction, they do. But more importantly, looking into the future, I think civic education is where we can really, you know, see. If you know that the government is responsible for whether you live or die because nobody is providing you health care or providing you health insurance or providing you, you know, typical things that would keep your life better. You won't be interested in the process of 18-year-old person. It's just like speaking Greek because they don't even know anything about it. So I think it should be part of what is taught in schools so that people already know what their civic responsibilities are right from when they're in school. I recall I went into a primary school somewhere in England, and I went into one of their libraries. There were books around espionage in the library of the primary school. I was thrown away to find such a book in a place like that. But they have where they teach them around what had happened in the past and how, it's their responsibility to keep the integrity, security, and every other thing around, their country. We don't do that here. We need to advocate how we provide civic education into our curriculum in schools, and then begin to make people to see the need for them to be able to be part of the, governing process. Voting this year, I'm waiting for another 4 years before, you do anything. Doesn't make sense. You don't know who your chairman is, your governor is. You don't even know how this. That's why they keep having this sort of stuff.
The audience, if time does allow us. Microphone, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Femi Longe with CCO, and this is an area of passion for me. During last elections, we ran a platform that helped the Electoral Commission do the work it couldn't do, called GoVotes.ng, and we're running that again now. A few comments I have. The first one is citizens are not apathetic. So the government has designed in its communication, and civil society followed too in the flaws in their communication of not engaging citizens. If you position your communication the way Nike would when they want to sell shoes, because selling shoes is important to them. It's a top. In Nigeria, during election season, the cost of placing an ad is twice the normal price, but for what they call political messages, even public service messages. I also think we're all civil society, the press, donors, very guilty of starting our work on election, which was PVCs not being collected on time. We've had 4 years to fix it. And that same thing is still threatening to derail our elections in 2019. I think the funders keep money for electoral projects until the very last minute, and then we wonder why we can't actually have impact. So I think if we start treating these things as things that we should not wait till the last minute, it's going to be the same for all those young people that want to rule. They will lose the elections in 2019. They will disappear. In 2022, they will come up again. Rather than spend time building the kind of groundswell that is necessary to effect the kind of change they want. These are my thoughts. Thank you.
This issue that happened a few months ago where it was said a snake swallowed money.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to ask the role that social media and online media play in elections. A candidate in borrowed roles, not totally lying, but exaggerating somebody's credentials on social media. So we can't really call it fake news, but propaganda in a subtle way that end up influencing citizens to vote for a particular candidate during election, which is something that is gradually, especially was obvious in the last elections in Nigeria, that social media influencer had serious impact on the elections. And unlike the traditional media where there are check and balances on the interest of the journalist, for example, in how it influences report, there are no check and balances on the output of the social media person. So there are some social media influencers that have, developed a person that people trust, that this person is saying the truth, so people trust them. And so when they say that this is how this candidate,
elections being just are able to track the progress, and also for you, Federico, in terms of the interventions or how realistic it is now for the mainstream media to actually keep track of those promises.
About the political ads, and part of that has to go to the regulator. They come to my show at 8 a.m. on a Monday morning, and I charge them 100,000, which I can if I want. I have to give that same charge, that same time to another station or to another party. But on the issue of PVCs and go out and vote and what should be public service announcements, I wholeheartedly agree with you on that. I know that my company is different. I cannot speak for everybody, and I understand what you mean when you say the industry. Those things are free with us. You can bring a speak for everybody in the industry in that regard, and I do appreciate that. Then he also mentioned CSOs and donors starting their work quite late, and I know this is actually a criticism I myself have had. You see with politicians, somebody who wants to run in 2019, you're telling us you want to run in May 2000.
I offend some people. Some of them have become businessmen. They understand the game. They get paid a lot of money, and they say nice things. Education should not focus on elections. It shouldn't always be about go and get your voter ID and vote on. It's possible for something that should be our responsibility as African citizens. We should care more about our people, ourselves. I was in Sierra Leone a couple of weeks ago when they had elections, and the United Nations decided to print guidelines for police officers on how to avoid violence and how to respond to crisis on election day. And transformed elections in France, in Switzerland, in America. Do they even care what we think about who is elected in their country? But we are always there, opening our palm, begging for support, begging for approval, begging for them to do something, to educate our masses. We shouldn't be waiting on others, on fixing the problem.
I think someone actually wanted to clap for everything that Marina was saying. I saw a few hands nodding here on the panel, and I think it might have resonated with a few out there in the audience. Wow, sorry, my apologies. BC, let me come to you, and you can still respond if you have anything else you want to add to Femi's comments. But Toby was asking you about what happens when there's misappropriation. Who do you ask? Who do you get those answers from?
We've seen it the way it is that we don't necessarily. You were saying something around if the government has designed their communication in such a way that Nike would have designed its communication to its consumers. The government do not see the people as consumers, so they don't see any need to do what you're asking to do. As far as they are concerned, they really don't have any responsibility to the citizen. That's the way I look at it. Because stakeholders engagement is one of the fundamental things that the government of the people should do. I mean, we are in government for the people that voted into office, and so typically one would expect that the government would care about, listening to and trying to do the things that the people ask. But here, they don't see it that way. They don't see the need to, engage you. Everybody that went into office or goes into office sees it as, I've bought my way through, so this time for me to sort of recoup my investment that I've spent through the period of electioneering. And the sort of civil society that should ordinarily help to advance, the cause of the people in terms of asking the right question. Everybody gets to sleep, just like you said. we have to, like my colleague here said, we have to take this as a day in, day out, year in, year out, 10-hour-long, conversation. We cannot always come at the, quarter to election and then we say we want to, start talking about stuff around the election. And that also applies to people who want to run for office. Typically, if you run for office, you don't win elections. You just go away and then wait maybe a couple of months before the next primaries, and then you come back and say, I'm back and I have money to give you guys. Let's go over again. That will continue to happen until the people start asking, where are you coming from? Who are you? Money and economic deprivation has really, put us in a place where some of our civil society organizations to have a rethink about that and, do a thorough analysis of how we can correct all the situations. Toby, you mentioned something around funds are being misappropriated and then you don't know who to report them to. Typically, they are institutional organizations, government institutional organization where this is supposed to be reported to. But you see, the way things happen in this part of the country, especially in Nigeria, is every major issue, whether every major scandal turns into a comedy at the end of the day. Because the guys in government sees it and you just give them a couple of days, something else will come. Every one of us here, or most of us here, were out there talking seriously about Chibok girls at a point in time. Everybody has moved away. There's just only a handful of people still gathering since that day trying to advocate for the same thing. The major problem with us is we move away from issues and just basically forget about them. I mean, it wasn't the first time people were talking about money has been misappropriated. Yes, it was the first time somebody would say snake, stole the money. Everybody thought it was a comedy and moved away. Something else has happened after then. Somebody has said monkey, took money. Tomorrow, elephant will be the one to take money or camel. And then we will just basically walk away from it. The problem is the fact that we just basically are in the now. We forget what, has happened. And then we're just basically saying, whatever has happened, let's move on. Now, the real issue for that to continue to happen is how do the people that are in offices, how do they emerge? Nobody is looking at the political parties and the role they play in democracy. Everybody just basically look at the guys who are occupying the offices. Typically, every elected officer or every appointed officer on the strength of the government that is in power is a representative of a political party that you voted for. You didn't vote for Buhari, you voted for APC. So if you were supposed to, be complaining about something that Buhari does, APC Secretariat is the place to go and, basically tear down. But nobody ever cares about what the party does. Nobody ever cares about what, PDP, APC, COA, does. It's only the guys in office that you see. If we begin to look at the process of how these guys emerge, which is from the political parties, I mean, what our constitution says today is you don't have independent candidates, so you have to be a representative of a particular political party before you can be voted for. The reforms needs to start from where these guys are coming from. And that's how we can begin to see some sense in how things are going to work. We have a situation where there's no difference between the political parties that are in this country. The only thing that is different in political parties that we have is the arrangement of the alphabet of their acronyms. Every one of them are the same. Just change P to A and then D is constant in all of them. A is, one person will move from this place to the other, another person will move from that place to the other. There's no ideology behind any of the political parties that we have. And they were not like that before. There were days when a political party in this country can call, the chairman of the political party will ring the president that he should come to the party secretariat. The party is summoning him or her. We haven't had a presentation. They will come. But can a political party in this present dispensation call Buhari and say, please, can we do that? or could, Lamanga Chukwu have told Jonathan to come to the party secretariat. We need, as young people, to begin to see what role do we play in the reforms of the political parties, and then see how we will begin to influence how people emerge for elections as candidates before they get into power and then become this kind of human beings that they are.
All right. So I'll start this question with Akua, but then I know Federico was mentioned in the second question. Has become, in some manner, in some spaces, a derogatory term. If someone tells you that they're a social media influencer, they lose value in some people's eyes. I've seen that happening.
I think that could be tied into the second part of the question. It goes towards fact-checking. I do think that from Facebook's perspective, we're a neutral platform, right? So we're not going to tell you, follow this influencer over this influencer, or this influencer is better versus the other. But I do want to put the control back in the hand of the people using our platform. Because if you see an influencer and you recognize what they're telling you is not the truth, or they're telling you things that are actually hateful, because they're telling you, this tribe is this, or this tribe is that, or this person is this, guess what? This is actually not allowed on our platform. We have recently launched more information about our community standards, which is basically the rules of engagement. What can you say, what can't you say on Facebook? So if one of these influencers is saying things that you know are not true, check them on it. Like, you can report things that are violating our community standards, be that hate speech, be that even things regarding false news. If it's something that you know it's not true, like, that's the whole idea about, it's a fancy term that they're saying, but it's counter speech. You basically then oppose what they're saying so people can have two sides of the story. Now, we've heard the point about didn't take place. And I was convinced by people who are doing this excellent work to say, oftentimes when people share misinformation or wrong information, it's actually old news. You can review these things. It's an old video, it's an old post, it's an old picture used to describe something that is inaccurate or untrue. You can actually, from a desk, check whether or not that information is right, where that picture came from, who shared that video originally, and let people know. So what we're doing from Facebook sites, we're partnering with fact-checking organizations so that when you come across something that somebody shared, an influencer or somebody else, it really doesn't even matter, and a lot of people flag it as false, you now will get an indication that will say, oh, this is something that many people have flagged as false. So you might want to check out information that says something. You might not want to take this at face value. So we can definitely, from a Facebook side and from a product side, come up with tools, and we continue to do so, to do our part to make sure that fact-checking organizations can do the work that is so critically important.
But I have a question in that regard. The community standards. I've had issues on Facebook where someone created a fake page for me, had content that was not content I would ever put on my page, and the hoops Facebook asked me to jump through in order to prove I am who I am and that the page is fake, it basically just dissuaded me at the end of the day. I did eventually still do it, but it took much longer. And in the era of Cambridge Analytica, even some of the backlash Facebook has gotten along the Rohingya crisis as well, having to now employ more native speakers so that you can flag these things earlier. How do you educate people on Facebook that there are community standards? Because once you're signing up and you click yes, no one ever goes back. Unless your video is flagged or a comment is flagged, a lot of people will never have to deal with issues of community standards with Facebook again. How do you educate users that they have this ability to help sanitize the space?
That's a great, great question. And you are not the first person who have raised this question, and we heard you. So one of the ways that we're making sure that people don't hear about community standards right when they sign up and never again is by public service announcements. So every once in a while, you have something pop up on your newsfeed to say, hey, you know that you can report things to Facebook? Hey, do you know that we have community standards? Hey, do you want to check what apps you have signed up on using the Facebook login and you might want to log out of? What information have you shared? So this is all based on user feedback that we received, and we've taken steps to make sure that people can more easily find out about these community standards, and they can more easily flag things to Facebook as well, so you don't feel like you have to go through 500 steps and bend over backwards to show Facebook what you know is true, which this account is fake. We also recognize that in regards to fake accounts, actually artificial intelligence can help curb some of that. So we're investing a lot from a product perspective to make sure that fake accounts can come down on a massive scale, because we've recognized, especially in our region, that it's a huge issue. People are suffering the consequences when they're being defrauded based on false accounts, and we don't want that to be the way the Facebook platform is used. But this is all based on feedback, so that's why I'm actually always loving having these type of conversations, because it's really valuable for people to say, you know what, this is not working, you guys need to do better, and then we can take it back and try again.
Okay, I'll still come back to you with part two. Okay, I'll still come back to you with part two of one of the questions. But Federico, now, we've talked about social media, online media influencers, checks and balances. Akua was mentioning fact-checking, that initially she was...
Convinced me that fact-checking works on Facebook and on WhatsApp is because I saw both. Yes. So I got really excited there about Sierra Leone, and then the lights cut off. But what I was trying to say is that one of the things that convinced me that fact-checking works is that I was in Sierra Leone with one of my colleagues right before the election. We were there at the eve of the presidential debate, and we had worked with both civil society groups and media, and saw how they had used WhatsApp and Facebook and Twitter to fact-check things the presidential candidates were saying on the day of the debate. And it was beautiful to witness, because any presidential candidate would throw in a number. People were online saying, where did you get that number from? Do you think that's correct? What's that information? Where are the statistics? Is this really true? And I thought it was beautiful, because they were holding people accountable using WhatsApp, using Facebook, making sure that, hey, you can't tell us just about anything. We want to know what your bases are for telling.
Advantages of the role of the media in monitoring the elections and helping citizens as well not make the right choice, but be aware of what their choices are, what questions they sort of need to ask in relation to all of this.
Yes. Actually, I mean, what Akua just said was, I mean, these are the sort of things that we're thinking about, sort of replicating what happened in Sierra Leone, that sort of using, you know, real-time sort of fact-checking, doing that. Although I have to say, I'm not on that optimistic scale in terms of the facts making a difference, because there are swaths of people who will not be swayed by facts, who operate on their emotions, and I think in the US there's ongoing interrogation of what happened in the election of Donald Trump, where even as the media was putting the facts out there as Donald Trump was making statements on campaign platforms, that they weren't swayed, you know, these hardcore conservatives and the values voters. And if we're honest, all of our societies are conservative societies. And so if they were in the US, they would also have voted for Donald Trump, because he's the sort of political persona that speaks from that charismatic authority, which which sort of speaks to a mindset that we're familiar with. So while we can criticize the US for electing Donald Trump, all we like, we would have voted for him as well, and in a lot of our societies, because we are very conservative societies, and we all know it. So using, I'm all for using these technologies and these interfaces to address the issue of facts from political platforms, and trying to sway people who are swayable, and then also just creating a record of civil society having been active. You can always use that record to, in future, to say, look, we did try. This didn't work. How can we improve this? We need to do that. In terms of media accountability, and this speaks to what the gentleman at the back there said as well, about how coverage tends to be reactive and event-based in the run-up to elections. And yes, we need to be a lot more proactive in terms of rolling out more sophisticated coverage well before, sort of the official electioneering phase and campaigning phases of elections start, so that we start, we start doing the messaging around what people should be cognizant of as elections draw near, and sort of putting the issues front and center, and then forcing the political parties and the politicians to react to the coverage, and not us reacting to whatever they're saying or doing on political platforms. So there needs to be a lot more, proactive engagement. That would include sort of the fact-checking element, where we already start fact-checking what was said on platforms ahead of the previous election. How much of what was said has actually been delivered, and then doing the accountability tests well before we move into the next elections, and then I'm going to say let's beat them over the head with whatever they said or saying and so forth, and encourage others, encourage society to do the same. And I don't want us to discount employing or co-opting social media influencers. I think we have to, it's a reality that they are there. We have to influence them, and we have to get them on our side, and even at the very least, trying to make them engage them in the discussions. And then also, in terms of issues of the use of social media, I think it's time that people people who are spreading fake news, disinformation, propaganda, I think it's time we drop a tolerance to leaving them be. Let's call them out. If somebody is, this is just anybody. If you see, and this is something I'm increasingly seeing on some of the WhatsApp groups I'm on, is how people are actually taking responsibility for some of these groups. Because, you have these professional sort of discussion groups, and then, you have some folks posting things on there, and most of the time people remain quiet and we move on to the next posting, and, it goes on, but that's there. And I think it's time, if you see something like that, take responsibility for your group. Call these people out. Tell them, this is inappropriate. This is not true. It's easily verifiable. Why didn't you do it? I recently had an argument like this with a colleague of mine on a WhatsApp group, which was interesting. And because of the spreading of a fake article about the First Lady that implicated her in some, big corruption scandal. And as soon as I challenged the person on it, the person, but I leave that up to others to verify. And I said, no, it's not others' responsibility to check if something is true. And I've heard this on a number of platforms where people are saying, my mother, my grandmother spreading, just passing on stuff, and we have to engage with them and tell them, what, look, this is inappropriate. This is damaging, and it can cause you problems. And I think we have to call the people who even if they're doing it inadvertently, innocently, call them out, make them aware of it, force them to be more careful in future with spreading this. So I think there's a lot that we can do that, just individually that can address issues of facts and the spreading of false information.
Okay. Federico, very quickly, Koliwe still also asked about checking promises, keeping progress of some of the electoral promises made as well on the campaign trail. For many people, that's really important. But how can that be done? She mentioned maybe having platforms like Facebook be part of that, but I don't see how that actualizes without people, citizens themselves, making use of the platform to do that. So in terms of tracking electoral promises and the things that are said by those who are campaigning, what's the next step in that regard?
Yeah, I think there's room there to be creative. You had something like when Obama was the second election that Obama was in, there was an Obama meter. And what I did was I adapted that to the Namibian context, and our president is called, his surname is Gango, and I just turned it into the Gango meter. So, and you can have, you can play around with the sort of visualization of such things where you have like a meter that measures to what extent the promises have been met. So it moves from red to green, and there's this spectrum of red and green color in between. So you can play around this, make it interesting, make it entertaining for people, attract people that way. I mean, similar to what the gentleman said. I mean, how do we reach out to voters in terms of the issues and creating awareness around elections and what they should be on the lookout for? It speaks once again to the sort of messaging. If we're going to be dour about it, we come with the usual sort of civil society seriousness and earnestness. We want to talk to you about why you should vote and so on. No, it's not working. It's not working. We have to find ways to appeal to an easily distracted audience these days. We're a young audience on this continent. We're a young electorate. We have to speak to what that electorate, what that audience reacts to. What stimulates the interest, what holds the interest, what holds the attention. So we have to find creative ways of inserting ourselves as civil society organizations, and I can tell you one thing, governments are looking for those ways as well. They're trying to figure out how to do that as well. So as civil society organizations, we have to be proactive. As media, we have to be proactive, and there's very little of that visible. But we have to be proactive in terms of that.
Okay, you want to, and then use this as an opportunity to quickly do your closing.
Okay, so in regards to the question as to how can companies such as Facebook help citizens hold their governments accountable, so we actually have developed products and tools which I find quite exciting. One of which that comes to mind is called Town Hall. What happens is political parties sort of sign up and put down all of the things that they promised in their manifestos. So this is what we're doing on housing. This is what we plan to do in education. And then citizens can select to follow them. And then they have a really easy way to see what does my party stand for, what have they promised, and then you can follow them and see whether they're going to deliver on these promises. So there are actually tools that we have developed, and we usually partner with Electoral Commission to launch them, to make sure that they are relevant and appropriate for the respective country in which they are launched. That helps citizens actually hold parties accountable. And that's some of the sort of exciting product stuff or product solutions that we've come up with to sort of help people play their part of being an active citizen. And I think my end spiel is, we at Facebook, the way that we operate is through partnerships. So how to spot false news or things to think about before you share information will only be memorable and useful if it's localized. So we're always interested in partnering with people to come up with ways, interesting ways to come up with campaigns, for example, to address these things. I don't know if anyone of you have seen this video. It's from OK Africa. It shares how there are young people who talk about their parents sharing things on WhatsApp. It's a really funny video, right? And if you share that with your mother, you share that with your father, they might think twice about sharing whatever message because they don't want to be that auntie in the video who's doing all this nonsense. So we are always interested in partnering with organizations that do voter education, voter awareness, to see how we can support those efforts. Always interested in figuring out how we can launch products or tools with developers that raise issues regarding to election integrity and the smooth process, not just only on the day of election, so does something go wrong on the day, but even leading up to the election, because I think that's a point that a lot of people made. We need to start being engaged now, not come 2019. So all to say, if you are working on something really great in regards to voter educational awareness, come find me so we can see how we can potentially work together.
Thank you, Farida. Moving forward, beyond how elections have possibly been ruined, but also with the whole theme of this thing, which is the Internet Freedom Forum about digital rights, how can we change that conversation and encourage and, of course, maybe guarantee our people better elections?
Give him back that one.
We have focused a lot on the negative side because of the team itself. How to run elections sounds pretty negative, but there's a lot of positive things we can take home. Is the fact that today, internet has also revolutionized the way people interact with one another. And the same way that we do have issues with fake news and we do have issues with government tampering with elections by using the internet, we also have an increase of civic participation thanks to the internet. Some people who wouldn't have had a chance to know what's going on in their country politically, people who are meeting across borders and who wouldn't need to be all together in the same physical place to work on certain projects. People are mobilizing thanks to the internet. People are getting more aware and ready thanks to the internet. So we need to understand from that the internet is a tool that can be very useful for us and is being useful for us. And even though there's some negatives, I don't think that the negative outcome the positive. And what we need to do is to know that, things are not as worse as we think it is because the information is available that we assume things are worse, but things used to be much worse in the old days. Like 20 years ago, for example, when there was no internet, a politician can go to a village and tell people lies and nobody will be able to know if it is true or not. Change the narrative. So the internet is giving us citizens a lot of power. And we have to make citizens aware that they have a lot of power thanks to the internet. The access to information, the way they can share information, the ability to communicate with people, to work with people, to mobilize, is what we need to hold our government accountable. No one will hold our government accountable for us but the citizens. And we can use the internet to empower citizens. So everything, it falls in the hands of the citizenry. And civil society is trying as much as they can, but beyond what we do and what people do as part of their individual civil society organization, we should also think about what we are doing as individual citizens in our countries. It shouldn't be just about because I work for this NGO and I focus on this, but it's about us being citizens and understanding that our countries exist before, during, and after the elections. Elections happens during, before, and after the elections. So every day conversations need to continue, and we have to keep fighting to preserve the little bit of rights we have been able to acquire and achieve even more.
All right, thank you. They are not in and of themselves democracy. And that's what we want for our people. That's what we want for the continent. How do we move forward?
I think for me, what is most important for us,
if you could just do me the favor of putting your hands together for Ford Foundation, I would really appreciate that. If you could do that also, where's Alberto? He's not in the room right now. He's a superstar. I won't explain more than that, but Alberto is a superstar. How many of us saw him last night? How many of you were at the dinner last night and saw Alberto doing the thing? Okay? When I say he's a superstar, you know what I mean. Can you please put your hands together for Google? Facebook. Mozilla. Microsoft. The Guardian. Not the Guardian UK, the Guardian Nigeria. And Premium Times. So, two quick announcements, and I know during lunch there was I heard a rumor. This is not fake news, right? It's, someone is looking at me and do you know what I want to say? Maybe you can go and say it. I heard this, maybe I should call the names of the usual suspects. I heard there's something called IFF After Dark, starting at 11 p.m. tonight. Who said where? Whoever said where, she's one of them. He's one of them. Okay, two important announcements. The first one is this. You probably noticed, if you were here on day zero, that we had a conversation with the media. One of the things that we've been doing for the last few months, over the last few years, yes, but particularly over the last few months, is that we've been proactively, or more like actively, engaging the media in terms of understanding the issues. We've had scenarios where you share a conversation around digital rights with someone from the media, and they do you the honors of reporting it. But when you do read the report, it's not exactly what you said. And one of the things that we had as conversation over time is, we would like to know more about these things you're talking about. And I think those who were at FIFA in Joburg last year, there was an unfortunate dinner that we went for, a group of us. I say unfortunate because we were told that there was going to be a very short presentation before the dinner, and then that short presentation ended up being about 30 minutes. This was not at FIFA, by the way. This was outside the venue, not the person's fault. And there's a lady who made a presentation on signed, I don't remember the topic, for about 30 minutes. And every slide we saw, we thought the next slide was the last one. You know how you're so hopeful, that's the last one, that's the last one, and that wasn't the last one. And then after the dinner, a group of guys came to sing. Let's just say they tried, but it was funny because someone then joked and said, the way she sounded when she was talking about science and we couldn't connect, at times is the way we sound when we talk our jargon as digital rights guys to our friends in the media who want to report the issues, but you're using phrases that honestly almost mean nothing outside the room. So we're glad to announce that beginning from next month, we're launching a Digital Rights and Inclusion Media Fellowship. And that means that we will have a journalist from any country on the continent embedded within an organization over a 6-month period. They will spend time traveling with us across all our 5 offices, and they would spend some time talking to people who are working there, break down the jargon. It's not presentation time, it's real work time. And after that, we'll spend some 4 months together with them virtually working. And during that time, there will be stipends to support the kind of work they want to do. There are times they want to write stories and travel and ask questions and things like that. We're glad to announce this here. And we hope that by the time we come back in 2019, and I'll say something about 2019 in a second, and it has nothing to do with elections in Nigeria, trust me. When we come back, we trust that we will be able to scale this up and do that for a lot more people. Please check paradigmhq.org from May 1, and you would see the application is open from May 5 and it closes on May 30, and the fellowship starts in July and it's for 6 months. That is the first announcement, and that's our way of saying that we are indeed, we acknowledge the role that the media has played over time, but we want to step up that relationship a bit more. The second announcement And this is exciting because today I went to 2 panels and I heard people saying things like, you know, we're talking about digital rights. But why would you talk about digital rights when people who are not online are not, I mean, they're not online in the first place. So what are you talking about in terms of their rights and also the digital inclusion session and things like that? We are, by the way, Paradigm Initiative, the digital rights and digital inclusion organization. Half of our work is digital rights. The other half is digital inclusion. For those who know our work across Nigeria, you will know that in Nigeria, in Aba, in Dakata, in Kano, and everywhere else where we do our digital inclusion programs, it is as much of interest to us as digital rights is. And over the last 3 years in particular, 3 IFFs in particular, we've had feedback from people who have asked questions that, can we have some conversations around access and things that are typically not talked about at this digital rights events. And we're glad, of course, to announce to you that from 2019, you would probably not hear the phrase, well, when you hear IFF, it's Valencia, not Nigeria. From 2019, what you will hear is the Digital Rights and Inclusion Forum, DRIF. I'm wondering why Adebo is the most excited person in the room about that. This will happen, of course, in Lagos. We announced this dates in advance so that we know you're very busy people, but please mark the dates. April 23 to 25, 2019, in Lagos, Nigeria. For those of you who loved Abuja so much and want to come back again, come back before then, that's fine. But we'll see you in Lagos for DRIF 19. Can I just quickly ask everyone who is wearing a tag that says staff, not delegates, not sponsor, not volunteer, everyone who identifies with no. If you work with Paradigm Initiative, if you're my boss, please come to the stage. Put your hands together for them. These are the ladies and gentlemen. One of them is hiding behind the door. Or you're going to get the others. Please keep the hands going. Please, please, please. These are the ladies and gentlemen who made this happen. Someone that no one said to me, but I know you hated that sound, right? That boom that happened all through the conference. I don't even know what to say. Okay? But this, where's Olumide? What is he designing? Okay. Well, Olumide isn't here, but let me start from Tosin. Please say thank you to Tosin. Iwoma. Adebora. Don't worry, we're getting that. And I can tell why, obviously. Sadiq. She. There's a reason why you are not the ones clapping and shouting. They are the ones shouting and clapping. She's the finance person. Rigobert. Boy. Okay, I won't say it. I won't say it. I should say it. Last night at the dinner, I saw everyone coming out, but I knew there was someone who won't come out. Because we know that standing from his computer is probably going to the restroom and then coming back again. When you put your hands together for him, please make it sound like this. Tunde, make sure you dance next time. Tunde. Sing together. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Director of Programs, Dr. Okunjika. So, the conversation doesn't end here, and I even have good news for you. Before you come to Lagos for DRIF 19, not too far from here. It's just 45 minutes to get to Accra, right? September 20, let me check the dates, so I don't send you to Accra for the wrong, on the wrong days. September 26 to 28, CIPESA, our partner, that's where Ashna's here. Where is Wakabi? Okay, they're hosting the Forum on Internet Freedom in Africa, September 26 to 28 in Accra, and we look forward to continue this conversation there before we even come back to continue the conversation again in April in Nigeria. Thank you for coming. Don't forget, it doesn't end here. The conversations continue online. It was great to listen to conversations about people who have talked about collaboration, living from here and all that. We see that happen all the time after the IFF. Okay, I thought I was going to hear the sound for a second there. So, like Federico, let me speak quickly before that happens. We want to thank you for filling the evaluation forms, and that's me saying, if you haven't, please do. We're a learning organization. We want to make everything better from one forum to the other. It's not just about the content, it's also about the experience. And we are very serious about that. So thank you for coming. For those whose flight got cancelled and got rebooked and yet arrived here even without luggage, we see you. Okay? For those who had to leave everything else aside just to Dalu Nagode. If you don't understand what I said, it's fine. Just ask someone on your table. But you understand this. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. See you in Accra and then see you in Lagos in April 2019 at